A dime. Just 10 cents. Yet in the world of coin collecting, a single dime from 1983 can be worth hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars. And here's the twist, many people have no idea why. They look at the little coin in their pocket change and assume it's worthless. But certain dimes struck in 1983 carry secrets that only sharp-eyed collectors notice. Let's dive into this fascinating year for U.S. coinage, where mistakes, varieties, and overlooked details turned everyday dimes into prized treasures. First, let's set the stage. The year was 1983. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, Michael Jackson's Thriller was topping the charts, and the U.S. Mint was busy striking billions of coins for daily use. For the dime, the design hadn't changed since 1946, President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, with a torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, representing liberty, peace, and strength. Nothing about the design seemed unusual. In fact, most people today don't even give a Roosevelt dime a second glance. But collectors know that in 1983, something unusual happened with the way these coins were produced. For starters, no mint sets were issued in 1982 or 1983. That decision from the U.S. Mint created a surprising ripple effect. Normally, collectors could buy official mint sets to obtain pristine examples of coins from each year. But with no sets available, the only way to get a high-grade 1983 dime was from circulation, meaning coins already released into the public. That might not sound like a big deal, but it meant that most 1983 dimes were handled, scratched, and worn down in daily commerce. As a result, finding a 1983 dime in superb condition today, especially one graded mint state 67 or higher, is extremely difficult. And when scarcity meets demand, values rise. Auction records prove it. A 1983 P. Roosevelt dime, in blazing mint state 68 condition, once sold for over $1,000. That's not because of an error or a variety, it's purely the rarity of surviving in such pristine shape. But errors? Yes, 1983 dimes also delivered some of the most intriguing mistakes. One of the most dramatic is the off-center strike. Imagine a dime where Roosevelt's portrait is shifted dramatically to the side, leaving a crescent of blank metal. These errors are visually striking, and collectors love them. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, such coins can bring anywhere from $50 to several $100s. Then there are double strike errors, where the coin was struck twice by the dies, leaving ghostly overlapping images. A 1983 dime with a clear double strike can fetch hundreds of dollars. But here's where it gets even more fascinating: transitional planchet errors. Normally, dimes after 1965 were made of a copper-nickel-clad composition. But once in a while, a blank intended for another denomination accidentally slips into the presses. Imagine a 1983 dime struck on a copper cent planchet. It would be smaller, thinner, and weigh less than the standard 2.27 grams. Those are extremely rare, but examples like this have sold for thousands of dollars. It gets even stranger: there are known 1983 dimes struck on planchets intended for foreign coins. Because the U.S. Mint was producing coins for other countries at the time, blanks sometimes got mixed into production lines. A Roosevelt dime struck on a foreign coin planchet is an incredible rarity. And here's a tip: if you're weighing dimes and find one that doesn't come close to the expected 2.27 grams, don't dismiss it. That small difference could signal a minting error worth serious money. Another area of interest for collectors is die varieties. These are not dramatic errors, but subtle differences in the dies used to strike coins. Some 1983 dimes show double die features, especially in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust. Under magnification, the letters appear doubled or shadowed. While not all double dies are valuable, strong examples can bring premiums. There are also repunched mint marks, where the P or D was punched into the die more than once, leaving traces of overlapping letters. These little quirks remind us that in the early 80s, minting technology wasn't as automated as it is today. Human hands were still part of the process, and with that came small mistakes. So, what should you look for if you come across a 1983 dime? Start with condition. If it looks unusually sharp, with no wear on Roosevelt's cheek or the torch's flame, it might be worth grading. Professional grading services like PCGS or NGC can confirm if your coin is one of those elusive high-grade survivors. Next, check for off-center strikes, double strikes, or unusual weight. A small digital scale that measures to hundredths of a gram can be a coin collector's best friend. If your dime doesn't weigh 2.27 grams, something unusual is going on. And don't forget the fine details. A magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe can reveal doubled letters or repunched mint marks. These subtle varieties may not always command sky-high prices, but they add fascinating depth to any collection. Let's pause here for a moment. Think about this: the dime was created in the 18th century to make small transactions easier. Yet 2 centuries later, collectors are still fascinated by this smallest silver-colored coin. It's a reminder that even ordinary pocket change can hold history, mistakes, and hidden value. And here's a story that always excites collectors. In 1983, a few dimes were discovered struck on experimental planchets. Imagine holding a dime that's not only a minting mistake but also a test piece that slipped out into circulation. Stories like that fuel the treasure-hunting spirit in coin collecting. Now, you might be asking, if these coins are so valuable, why don't we hear about them more often? The truth is, most people don't check their change closely. A dime seems too small to be worth anything beyond 10 cents. That's why collectors who do take the time to look have an advantage. And here's a practical point: many of the valuable 1983 dimes were found not in bank rolls but in old jars, drawers, and collections saved decades ago. People stashed them away without realizing their significance, and today, those forgotten coins can be small treasures. But let's bring this full circle. Is every 1983 dime valuable? Of course not. Billions were made, and the vast majority are worth only face value. But the rare survivors, whether pristine high grades, dramatic errors, or odd planchet strikes, are the ones that excite collectors and sometimes make headlines at auction. It all comes down to this: keep your eyes open. Don't overlook the humble dime. In a sea of ordinary coins, a rare 1983 dime could be hiding, waiting to be discovered. And isn't that the joy of collecting? The idea that history, mystery, and value can all be tucked into the palm of your hand, disguised as something so common you might spend it without a second thought. So next time you check your change, pause for a moment. Look closely at that dime. You never know, you might be holding one of the rarest treasures from 1983.